The sky over Oakridge was the color of a fresh bruise. A thin, freezing sleet glazed the headstones of the cemetery, making the world look like it was coated in glass. Elena Vance stood by the tiny white casket, her body so numb she could no longer feel the cold. For 3 years, she had been the project of the wealthy Sterling family. They had never liked her, a girl from the wrong side of the tracks who had captured the heart of their golden boy, Thomas. But after the tragic, sudden loss of her 3-month-old son, the thin veil of their civility vanished. As the priest finished the final prayer, Thomas didn't reach for Elena's hand. He stepped back, standing beside his mother, Beatrice, who was dabbing her eyes with a dry lace handkerchief. "It's time to move on, Elena," Thomas said, his voice as cold as the sleet. He handed her a thick, yellow envelope. "My family can't be tied to this tragedy anymore. The house is already being cleared. There's a taxi waiting at the gates to take you to a motel. Don't call us." Beatrice let out a soft, sharp titter, a sound that would haunt Elena's dreams. "We gave you a chance at a real life, dear. It's a shame you couldn't even keep a legacy alive. Consider this your severance package." The Sterlings turned and walked toward their fleet of black SUVs, their laughter echoing through the silent graveyard like a sacrilege. Elena stood alone, clutching the divorce papers to her chest. She had no money, no family, and the only piece of her heart left was under 6 feet of Oregon soil. Driven by a blind, desperate need to simply disappear, Elena began to walk. She walked past the taxi, past the town, and up into the winding mountain passes. Her breath came in ragged gasps as the adrenaline faded and the hypothermia began to set in. 2 miles up the pass, her legs gave out. She collapsed into a snowbank, the world fading to a dull gray. A pair of headlights cut through the gloom. A rugged, black pickup truck slowed to a halt. A man stepped out broad-shouldered, wearing a worn canvas coat and a look of deep, settled exhaustion. This was Adam Miller. To the locals, he was the quiet widower who raised his 5-year-old daughter, Mia, on a secluded ranch. They didn't know he was a former elite operative who had walked away from the government after seeing too much blood. Adam saw the woman in the black dress, half buried in the snow. He didn't hesitate. He scooped her up, she was dangerously light, and placed her in the heated cab of his truck. "Stay with me," he muttered, his voice a low, gravelly command. He drove her back to his ranch, a fortress of cedar and stone. He carried her inside, past the flickering warmth of the wood stove and into the guest room. As he worked to warm her frozen hands, he noticed the envelope she was still clutching with a death grip. He saw the Sterling family crest on the seal. Adam's jaw tightened. He knew that name. In his old life, the Sterlings were the kind of people he was sent to handle when their greed became a liability. Elena opened her eyes, seeing the rough-hewn beams of the ceiling and the flickering firelight. She saw the man sitting in the shadows, his eyes filled with a strange, protective fire. "Where am I?" she whispered. "You're at the end of the road," Adam said. "And for you, that's a good thing. The people who did this to you, they think the story is over. But they don't know who I am, and they don't know what I'm going to help you become." The dawn arrived at the Miller Ranch not with a bang, but with the soft, persistent sound of Adam's axe splitting cedar in the yard. Inside, Elena lay beneath a mountain of heavy quilts, her body finally warm but her mind still trapped in the gray mist of the cemetery. The door to her room creaked open, and a small face peered in. It was Mia, Adam's 5-year-old daughter. She was holding a tattered stuffed bear and wearing mismatched pajamas. She approached the bed with the quiet reverence children reserved for wounded things. "Are you the lady from the snow?" Mia whispered, placing the bear on the edge of the blanket. "Daddy says you're resting your heart. Barnaby can help." Elena felt a lump form in her throat that no amount of warmth could melt. Seeing the child's innocence was a jagged reminder of the life she had just buried. "Thank you, Mia," she rasped. By the time Adam came inside, the smell of pine and cold air clinging to his coat, Elena was sitting up. The yellow envelope sat on the nightstand,
unopened but looming like a headstone.
I can't stay here, Adam, Elena said as he handed her a bowl of steaming oatmeal.
The Sterlings, they don't just discard people. They erase them. If they find out I'm here, they'll come for you.
They have lawyers, police, and money that acts like a silencer. Adam leaned against the doorframe, his presence filling the room.
I've spent half my life dealing with men who think their bank accounts make them bulletproof, Elena. Money only works if the person you're paying is more afraid of you than they are of me. They won't find this place unless I want them to. But the wanting came sooner than expected. An hour later, a silver European sports car, entirely out of place on the muddy ranch road, roared up to the gate.
Adam didn't reach for a gun, he reached for a pair of binoculars.
It's not Thomas, Adam muttered. It's one man. Alone.
The man who stepped out was Caleb Thorne. He was Thomas's best friend and the Sterling family's lead architect, but he looked nothing like the polished socialites Elena remembered. His tie was loose, his eyes were bloodshot, and he looked like a man who hadn't slept since the funeral. Adam met him at the porch, his posture a warning.
You're a long way from the country club, Thorne.
Caleb stopped at the bottom step, his hands raised in a gesture of peace.
I saw her, Adam. At the funeral.
I saw Beatrice laughing in the limo while Elena was standing over that tiny grave. I saw Thomas check his watch while the priest was still speaking. I've been their friend for 20 years, but I can't be a part of this.
Not this. Elena stepped onto the porch, wrapped in Adam's oversized flannel shirt.
Why are you here, Caleb?
To offer me more papers?
Caleb looked at her, his face contorting with genuine shame. I'm here because I have the one thing the Sterlings are terrified of.
Information. Thomas didn't divorce you because of the tragedy, Elena.
He divorced you because he needed you out of the way before the inheritance audit.
Elena froze. What audit? Your son, little Leo.
He wasn't just a Sterling, Caleb whispered, his voice cracking.
Your grandfather, the one your mother never talked about?
He was the silent partner in the Sterling firm.
He left a trust that was supposed to trigger on Leo's first birthday. Billions, Elena. If Leo passed, the trust was supposed to go to you. But Beatrice found a loophole.
If you're legally divorced and mentally unfit before the probate clears, the money reverts to the Sterling estate. The silence that followed was deafening. The cruelty wasn't just emotional, it was a calculated financial execution. They hadn't just mocked her grief, they had weaponized it to steal her birthright. Adam's gaze turned to Caleb, his eyes like ice.
And why tell us now?
Because they're planning to file the unfit paperwork tomorrow morning, Caleb said, pulling a thick folder from his jacket.
They're going to claim Elena had a breakdown and wandered into the mountains to end it.
If she's not at the courthouse to contest it, she loses everything. Her name, her inheritance, and the justice Leo deserves.
Adam looked at Elena.
The broken woman from the snow was gone. In her place was something cold, sharp, and revitalized by a righteous fury.
Adam, Elena said, her voice steady. Can you get me to that courthouse?
Adam looked at his watch, then at the heavy clouds gathering over the peaks.
The pass is closing. We'll have to go through the old logging trails. It'll be dangerous.
He looked at Caleb. You're staying here with Mia. If anyone comes through that gate who isn't me, you use the radio in the barn.
Understand?
As Adam went to the gun safe and retrieved a heavy, black tactical case, revealing a side of the lonely dad that made Caleb's blood run cold, Elena realized that the Sterlings hadn't just thrown her away. They had dropped a match into a powder keg. The engine of Adam's heavy-duty truck roared to life, a low, predatory growl that seemed to challenge the rising wind. The logging trails were not roads, they were jagged scars cut into the side of the Cascades, forgotten by maps and reclaimed by the ice. Buckle up, Adam said, his voice flat and professional.
The gentle father who had tucked Mia into bed was gone.
In his place was a man who moved with a terrifying, calculated precision. The Sterlings will have the main highway blocked with private security. They're expecting a grieving widow to crawl out of a motel.
They aren't expecting a ghost to come screaming over the ridge. As they ascended, the sleet turned into a blinding white wall of snow.
The world outside the windshield disappeared, leaving only the hypnotic sweep of the wipers and the red glow of the dashboard.
Caleb said they're filing the paperwork at 9:00
a.m., Elena said, her fingers digging into the upholstery.
That gives us 6 hours.
We'll make it, Adam replied. He glanced at the GPS, not a standard unit, but a military-grade topographical display that showed heat signatures and satellite pings.
But we have company. 3 red dots appeared on the edge of the screen, moving fast along the lower parallel trail.
Beatrice Sterling hadn't just relied on lawyers, she had hired a recovery team to ensure Elena was found and silenced before she could ever reach a witness stand.
They're tracking your phone's last ping from the ranch, Adam said.
He reached over, grabbed Elena's phone, and threw it out the window into the abyss of a 1,000-foot ravine.
Now we're invisible. The trail narrowed until the truck was inches from the cliffside.
The wind shrieked, rocking the 3-ton vehicle like a toy. Suddenly, a tree, heavy with ice, groaned and collapsed directly across their path.
Adam slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded, the back tires dancing over the edge of the precipice before gripping the frozen gravel. Stay inside, Adam commanded.
He stepped out into the storm, not with a chainsaw, but with a winch cable and a set of specialized explosive bolts he had retrieved from his carpenter workshop. Elena watched through the glass, her breath hitching. In the strobing light of the hazards, she saw Adam moving through the waist-deep snow.
He wasn't struggling.
He was navigating the elements as if he were part of them. Within minutes, the massive cedar was dragged aside, and the path was clear. But as Adam climbed back in, a spotlight cut through the whiteout from the trail below. The recovery team had caught the scent.
A black armored SUV surged up the incline, its engine screaming. They found us! Elena cried. Adam didn't panic.
He shifted the truck into a specialized gear and cut the headlights.
They found a target.
They haven't found a way to stop me. He pulled a small remote from the visor and pressed a sequence. Behind them, on the narrowest bend of the trail they had just passed, the explosive bolts he had planted earlier detonated. A localized rockslide thundered down, burying the trail and cutting off the pursuers in a roar of granite and ice. The rest of the drive was a descent into a different kind of darkness, the cold, sterile lights of the city. As they reached the outskirts of Oak Ridge at 4:00 a.m., the adrenaline began to fade, leaving Elena with the crushing weight of the coming confrontation. "Why are you doing this, Adam?" she asked quietly. "You could have stayed in your quiet life. You didn't have to risk your daughter's safety for a stranger." Adam looked at her, and for a fleeting second, the operative mask slipped. "I lost my wife because I was too late to get home. I spent years thinking I was retired from the world's cruelty. But when I saw you in that snow, I realized that retirement is just another word for looking the other way. I'm not doing this for you, Elena. I'm doing this because men like Thomas Sterling think they can buy the world. I'm here to remind them that the world has a receipt." They pulled into a hidden garage blocks from the courthouse. Adam opened the tactical case in the back, pulling out a sharp, charcoal gray suit and a set of documents he had forged using his old deep cover contacts.
At 9:00
a.m., Thomas and Beatrice will walk into courtroom 4B, Adam said, handing Elena a thermos of coffee. "They think they're attending a funeral for your rights.
We're going to make sure it's the funeral for their empire." The clock on the wall of the Oak Ridge County Courthouse ticked with the finality of a heartbeat.
At 8:55 a.m., the hallway outside courtroom 4B was a sea of polished marble and hushed whispers. Beatrice Sterling sat on a mahogany bench, her spine as rigid as the diamonds at her throat. Beside her, Thomas shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the heavy oak doors. "She's gone, Thomas," Beatrice whispered, her voice a silk-wrapped blade. The recovery team reported a rockslide on the pass. No one survived that trail. By 10 a.m., the probate judge will sign the emergency order, and the Vance Trust will be ours. It's a tragedy, of course, but a profitable one.
Thomas nodded, though a bead of sweat rolled down his temple. "I just want it over with. The funeral, the papers, it's been a lot."
"It's a cleanup," his mother countered. "And we are the janitors of our own legacy." The doors opened. The court clerk gestured for them to enter. The judge, a stern man named Miller who had presided over the Sterling estate for decades, looked down from the bench.
"We are here to discuss the emergency petition for the mental incapacitation and subsequent asset forfeiture of Elena Vance," Judge Miller announced. "Where is the respondent?"
"She is unable to attend, Your Honor," the Sterling lawyer began, his voice dripping with feigned sorrow.
The grief was too much.
"We believe she has fled the jurisdiction in a state of..." The heavy double doors at the back of the courtroom slammed open. The sound was like a gunshot. The Sterlings turned, their faces turning a ghastly shade of gray. Standing in the doorway was Elena Vance. She wasn't the broken woman from the graveside. She wore a sharp, midnight blue suit, her hair pulled back into a sleek, severe bun. Her eyes, once clouded with grief, were now burning with a cold, terrifying clarity. Beside her stood Adam Miller. He was no longer the man in the canvas coat. He wore a charcoal gray suit that fit his broad frame with military precision. He carried a leather briefcase like a weapon. "The respondent is present, Your Honor," Adam's voice boomed, vibrating through the wood of the pews. "And she is more than capable of speaking for herself." Beatrice stood up, her pearls clutched in her fist.
"This is an outrage. Who are you?"
"This man is a stranger, a kidnapper." "My name is Adam Miller," he said, walking toward the bar with a calm that made the Sterling lawyer take a step back. "I am a former special auditor for the Federal Treasury and currently the court-appointed advocate for the Vance estate. And if you speak again without being sworn in, Mrs. Sterling, I will have the bailiff remove you for contempt." Judge Miller leaned forward, his eyebrows arching.
"An auditor? Mr. Sterling, you didn't mention an advocate." "Because they didn't know he existed," Elena said, her voice steady and echoing.
She walked to the stand, looking directly at Thomas.
"They thought I was alone.
They thought because my baby was gone, I had no reason to fight.
They were wrong." Adam opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents.
"Your Honor, we aren't here just to contest the divorce. We are here to file a criminal complaint. We have evidence, provided by the Sterling firm's own lead architect, that the divorce was initiated as a means to circumvent a billion-dollar trust. We also have proof that the accidental rockslide on the mountain pass last night was an attempted hit on my client's life." The courtroom erupted. Thomas surged forward, his face red. "You're lying. Caleb wouldn't betray us." "Caleb Thorne didn't betray you, Thomas," Adam said, turning to him. "He saved himself. He saw what you did at that funeral. He saw the heart of this family, and it made him sick." Adam handed the judge a final piece of paper.
"This is the original Vance Trust.
It states that in the event of the child's passing, the assets do not revert to the Sterling family. They go to a foundation of Elena's choosing unless she is proven unfit. This entire charade was a murder attempt on a woman's soul for a profit margin." Judge Miller scanned the documents, his face hardening into stone. He looked at Beatrice and Thomas, who were now arguing in hushed, frantic tones with their lawyer. "This court is in recess for 1 hour," the judge barked. "Bailiff, ensure that Mr. and Mrs. Sterling do not leave the building. Mr. Miller, Miss Vance, in my chambers.
Now."
As Elena walked past Thomas, he reached out to grab her arm, his face a mask of desperation.
"Elena, wait. We can talk about this. We're family. Elena stopped. She looked at the hand on her sleeve, then up at the man she had once loved. She didn't scream. She didn't cry.
Family doesn't laugh at a baby's funeral, Thomas, she said, her voice a cold, final whisper.
And family doesn't leave their wife to die in the snow. You aren't my family. You're just a debt I'm finally collecting.
She shook him off and walked toward the judge's chambers, Adam following behind her like a silent, invincible shadow. The Sterlings were left in the well of the court, realizing for the first time that the lonely dad they had ignored was the very man who was about to bury them. The night air was finally still, the only sound the soft crackle of the fireplace back in the main house. The 4 mercenaries had been handed over to a private security detail, not the police, but the silent professionals who worked for the Vane estate. Julianne Sterling was no longer a threat. She was currently being driven to a remote location where she would be presented with a choice: total silence in exchange for a one-way ticket out of the country, or a lifetime in a federal cell.
Clara sat at the heavy oak table in Adam's kitchen, her laptop open.
The black carbon fiber card was slotted into a portable reader. As the data decrypted, a web of corruption unfolded across the screen. It was more than just greed, it was a systematic laundering operation that involved Elias's father and several high-ranking city officials. They used their charity events and high-end dinners at Lelit to move millions in dirty money, Clara whispered, scrolling through the ledgers.
They weren't just a family of vultures, Adam. They were a virus.
Adam stood behind her, his hand resting on the back of her chair. The ghost had retreated back into the shadows of his eyes, leaving only the man who wanted peace.
With this, the Sterling name won't just be bankrupt. It will be erased. No one will ever associate with them again.
They'll be pariahs in the very world they worshipped.
Clara looked up at him.
I spent 3 years trying to make them love me. I thought if I was small enough, quiet enough, and poor enough, I'd finally find a family.
I was looking for a home in a graveyard. You were looking for a home in the wrong forest, Adam said gently.
But the thing about graveyards is that they're in the past.
It's nearly New Year's, Clara. The sun is about to come up on a world where nobody knows your name unless you want them to.
The cleanup was swift and absolute. Within a week, the news headlines were dominated by the Sterling scandal. Elias and his father were indicted on 42 counts of racketeering. Beatrice Sterling, stripped of her home and her status, was forced to move into a cramped one-bedroom apartment funded by a blind trust that Clara had set up, not out of mercy, but to ensure Beatrice felt the weight of the poverty she had so often mocked. Marcus, the waiter, was rewarded with a full partnership in a new, high-end restaurant Clara funded in the city, a place where character was valued over currency. But the biggest change happened at the farmhouse. Adam didn't go back to being just a lonely carpenter, and Clara didn't return to the Vane Tower in the city. Instead, they built something new. Clara used her resources to turn the surrounding woods into a protected sanctuary, ensuring that the quiet Adam loved would never be threatened by developers again. On New Year's Eve, there were no silk tablecloths or crystal flutes. There was just a small bonfire behind the farmhouse. Lily was running around the snow, chasing the sparks as they rose into the winter sky. Clara stood by the fire, wearing a thick flannel shirt she'd borrowed from Adam. She looked at the man who had opened his door to a shivering stranger and changed the course of her life. I never thanked you, Clara said, leaning her head against his shoulder. For not asking questions that night. For just letting me in. Adam wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. I've spent my life looking for a reason to keep the door unlocked, Clara. I think I finally found it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside wasn't a diamond, but a hand-carved ring made of dark, polished ironwood, inlaid with a tiny, shimmering sliver of carbon fiber, the raven and the ghost joined together. It's not a Vane diamond, Adam said. But it's solid. It'll last as long as the trees. Clara smiled, tears of genuine joy blurring her vision as he slid the ring onto her finger. It's the most expensive thing I've ever owned, she whispered. Because it's the only thing that's real. As the clock struck midnight, the charity case was long gone, and the ghost was finally at peace. They weren't hiding from the world anymore, they were building a new one plank of wood and one act of love at a time. What an incredible journey of justice and redemption! Clara and Adam's story reminds us that true wealth isn't found in a bank account, but in the people who stand by you when the storm is at its worst. The Sterlings learned the hard way that you should never mistreat someone just because they seem to have nothing, because you never know who is watching from the shadows. If you had the power to restart your life with a clean slate this new year, what's the one thing you would change? Let us know in the comments below. If you loved this 5-part tale of revenge, protection, and new beginnings, please show your support. Like this video, share it with someone who loves a good hidden identity twist, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you're always there when the next door opens. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the person you think you're protecting is the one who ultimately saves you. See you in the next story.